Man, so tell me, how does it feel now that post-closing?
It feels good. It feels like I finally accomplished something, kind of what I set out to do
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
spoke with you back in February, I think it was. And at the time, like this was such a new world that I'll be honest, it was like I saw all the positives going into it.
Yeah.
And I never really thought it was going to be a reality until the more, you and I spoke month after month and like seeing that, hey, I can do this does work. So it feels good, kind of like a big relief in a sense. Finally
Yeah.
get something going after having, as a few ones slipping through the cracks, but now it feels good.
Tell me a little bit more about the deal. What was the revenue? What was cash flows? What price did you get it at? How did you set up the structure of the financing, all that stuff?
After you and I, like this happened literally like a week after we didn't have like our session. And I was just so determined to like do this, like everything you taught me, at least getting to the point where, hey, if I know how to get the financials, how to read financials, have a general idea as far as the direction of the company. And if all that makes sense, then, setting up the phone call with the seller, if that goes well, great. So the price was 1.7 of the company. We're on track to do about a little over 1.5 in revenue. What really drew me to this opportunity was the seller. If this was a seller who was just kind of picking up and leaving right after, then it probably wouldn't have worked. So the way this one was set up was there were two sellers. One was an elder lady. She was in her late 50s, and the other seller / owner was a gal who was in her mid 30s. And the gal in her mid 30s wanted to retire. She was the one that actually started the company, about 20 years prior. Her son works there. She owns the building. So it worked out perfectly to where there's a lot of interests that aligned to where she wanted to stay on. It was just a good overall opportunity for me to take this one as like the first one as far as being hands off. Right now, I feel a little bit more comfortable where I can get a little more creative or aggressive with the opportunities that come up, especially in the CPA world and the accounting world, where hey, now I can maybe look at something where the owner isn't going to be there. The idea in mind that I could possibly link kind of both of these under the same umbrella. So it's still a learning experience, and I'm kind of just taking it day by day. But so far, it's been really nice.
So you got it for, like you said, 1.7. It was doing 1.5 in revenue. What was the cash flow on that?
So the SDE was 875.
Nice.
So it was a very healthy cash flow number. And again, that was split between two of the owners. Being that it was a little bit more of an expensive deal, that cash flow helped support the debt service, and then also to incentivize the seller for me to pay her very well.
Awesome. So now, based on your analysis and looking at after debt service and after the incentivization for the remaining owner, what are you hoping on a conservative basis to bring on cash flow to your end, first year of owning this?
I'm not a greedy person. I obviously want to make money. The deal's got to make sense, but I understand the value this CPA brings to me and to the firm. So, after all things said and done, she was making well over $400,000 each year. What I did was I paid her a very hefty salary of $300,000. I'm paying myself $100,000. And then after all expenses, after all debt service, everything that's essentially covered, if we hit our number of 1.55, the take home would be $264,000.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
And the remaining owner, does she have any equity stake in the company?
No equity stake.
Nice. So all of that now is that would be your portion. That's coming
Correct.
to you. After that. Awesome.
I also set up an incentivized structure to where if we do over 1.6, then she gets, 30% of that. So like it keeps incentivizing her to obviously do well and bring in more revenue and just have our interests aligned as we continue to grow.
So is there any hires that you need to make?
Great question. So before we closed the deal, Marie, who was the seller, she had express that, hey, we are looking to hire someone. We're in the process of hiring someone already just because we're bursting at the seams and we just needed extra help and support. So that process had already started before I had officially closed the deal, and that had already been budgeted into those numbers as well. So we were super conservative with, my pro forma, the cash flow numbers and everything. And we ended up just hiring someone who starts November 15th. Yeah, we hired one extra person to kind of help her with the load, especially with, the other CPA that left. In a good way, that other CPA was not really doing much the last 3 to 6 months, and a lot of other employees had to kind of pick up the slack. So it's not like a huge drop off in production or workload.
What does it look like on is it most of your revenues coming in tax season? Is it kind of spread out through bookkeeping and payroll? What does it look like on a yearly basis where most of your revenues are coming from?
Most of the revenue is coming from like tax season.
Yeah.
Right. And then also the extension that we just had as far as October 15th and that deadline. So we're on track to do 115 this month as far as revenue goes, which is typically a little slower, but a lot of people had kind of pushed back their tax returns. So most of the revenue does come from the tax return season. We do about 20% of the revenue comes from about payroll. So there's consistent income throughout the year as far as doing, payroll and bookkeeping for companies.
So is it enough to cover all the overhead all year long, or is there some months where you're in a deficit until you get to the big months?
Yeah. So some months there are a deficit, which she did, we went over kind of day one. Yeah, some months, I'll be in excess close to like 200,000 in revenue. The worst month, it looks like I'll be in a deficit of around like 30 grand. Most of the time, the average revenue is about 125,000. So that averages to about 22,000 if you spread out everything equally over the course of the year is kind of what the average is on a positive basis. There's a lot of, meat on the bone. And of course, really just kind of seeing the first year of how this all goes and, what months really, do well and what other months don't do as well is going to be a big thing so I can budget and stuff like that.
So now zooming out from this, you're still working your typical 9 to 5, right? You're still doing your normal job. Is there any reason why you feel like, man, I'm going to be too busy. I need to stop my 9 to 5. I have to jump into this accounting firm, or are you planning on doing my 9 to 5, making my nice salary that I make, and then keeping this as a secondary source of income?
That's exactly what I'm doing is, I'm still focused mainly on real estate. I mean, this has been like such a blessing with this seller has been amazing. Her and I are in communication almost every day, just on little things. She is running the entire show. She runs things by me as far as like big decisions, but I mean, day-to-day stuff, it is very, very passive. So I'm very fortunate to have her.
Yeah, no, you did a good job though. And you also, like as we were working together, we went through multiple deals, we're talking to the sellers and we were getting to the point of writing LOIs, and not every deal, our goal was always for it to be passive for you or not to be an active day to day. But some deals, as even the ones that we went through, some of them would have been a little bit more active from you. You might still have been working your 9 to 5, but this one seems like you really hit the nail on the head with finding the real, a good dance partner to be able to take that on. She's incentivized. She's making a healthy salary. It would now that she doesn't have the burden ownership, she is just relying upon you're keeping the direction, doing the things that will eventually start to continue to grow the firm. Man, that's great, especially right now. And like you mentioned before, obviously you're in real estate, and right now with rates being so high, I'm sure that's being affected, right? In terms of like, it's not as easy to underwrite a deal as it was before. Yeah. And so having another secondary source of income is kind of also probably relieve some pressure from you and be like, okay, even 100%. If things go really bad here, I have something that's coming in on that side.
Yeah, 100%. And it's been, this has really taught me a lesson as far as like everything kind of happens for a reason, right? I remember that there was like that one property management company up in like Washington that I was so gung-ho about, and I was so, amped on that. It just made so much sense. I mean, looking back, I'm so happy that didn't happen just because A, I wouldn't have found this, but B, looking back in hindsight, I was so eager to get something that I was kind of blinded by really the day-to-day stuff and really what was involved with, actually owning a business, to where now that I have this, it's really going to help me be more selective and not force things, right? Obviously you want to get a deal done, but it's just the pressure to get something under your belt now is off, and it almost makes things flow easier for deals to kind of come across your desk and stuff like that.
Totally, man. And let's jump right back into the numbers on that side again too. So at the end of the day, you're getting $100,000 salary. With all said and done, you're projecting to make over 200K in distributions from the company. In terms of an ROI, you finance this through the SBA, right? So there was 90% and financing on that end. And so from the money that you had to personally put in the deal to the amount that you'll be making in year one, what does that return look like for you?
My total investment was $182,000. I make all my money back within easily the first year.
Yeah, I mean, if you do the full distributions plus your salary, you're looking around 320-ish.
Yeah.
Right. So and then take that, divide by the 180 that you put in. Yeah, you've almost doubled. I mean, you probably have 100.
It's 180%. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's crazy.
I just want people to understand that obviously this is not your background. You were able to go and find an accounting firm that had two owners. One wanted to leave, one wanted to stay. The person who was staying is now the person who's pretty much like your GM, right? They're running the day-to-day. They're in the office. They're the ones dealing with all the employees for the most part. You are in communication. You understand what's happening, but for the most part, she's taking care of it. And you were able to buy this business that will probably net you somewhere over 300K. And you put in around 180K. And so in the first year, doing 180% return, and only if all things considered in the plan will grow from there. And so that is the power of being able to acquire an existing business. And this is done in a way in which you are still working your normal job, making your normal wages. And now you've not only probably, got close to significantly increasing the total amount of money you're making now, but also you diversified your revenue. So you de-risked yourself. Even though you took on a business, now you've de-risked yourself in terms of something happens over here, I still have this, or if something happens here, I still have this, right? So that's hugely powerful, man.
No, I mean, dude, it's just crazy because how I found you and on Twitter is to lead to this is just it's pretty remarkable thinking about it. So
and what was the total time period? So when we first started till the closing, what was it, been 6 months?
So I mean, from start to finish, it was about 6 months to close for sure.
And it's important to note, you did the search. Did you ever do a site visit up there?
Yeah. So it was funny. Like I'd spoken to the seller probably 20 hours on the phone total over the 3 months of, the due diligence and the underwriting and all that stuff. And I had never, done any Zoom or FaceTime. She's super old school. It was very nerve-wracking actually going up there. So the day before we closed, Live Oak sent a guy up there to do like a site inspection. And then I, of course, wanted to go up there, and I ended up closing and signing loan docs in the office.
This is really in Asheville, North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
I love, which is also a pretty cool area. It's a really cool area.
Super cool area. And this was end of September. So it was just absolutely gorgeous.
Beautiful up there.
But so it was, I had never met this person before. And, she hadn't told the employees, and there were 6 other employees that were working there. She hadn't told them. So we were going to do this together. And that was the hardest part about this whole thing was I was like so nervous about everything. And, all these gals, they're super nice. They're just like probably in their late 40s, early 50s. They're just like accountant people. So we get there and she starts crying right away. I'm like, oh, great.
That's always a good start.
Yeah. Long story short, it was just super awkward for the first like 2 minutes because as she was trying to explain everything and, this is going to be a good thing. Everyone's staying on board. We paid them a bonus that day. She paid them out of pocket of her money as far as like taking care of like all their unused vacation plus a little something extra just to like cope with everything. But it ended up being amazing. All the girls were just, wonderful and very happy that like, obviously they're staying on board. And so that was something that no one could have really prepared me for, I guess. That was the one thing that I was just like, I never thought about until like it was actually happening. As far as like the handoff or the transition.
And the human element of it too, right? Because we do for so long, the whole process is a spreadsheet. And does this work? Do I have enough to cover debt service? Am I going to make enough of an ROI? Okay, all that's great. But then you go into the office or you go and you meet this. You not only bought the assets of the business and the book of business, you bought the people, right? In a sense, like obviously they're working at their own free will, but you bought the whole entire team. And so you walk in and all of a sudden you have these people looking to you and they're like, you're our boss. And it's like, okay, wow, that's a whole different dynamic to this than just looking at the spreadsheets and doing the calls on the Zoom call. So that is a big thing when you walk in in for the first time, for sure.
For sure is. So it was very nerve-wracking, but it ended up being obviously, going a lot better than expected. And that was interesting to deal with, for sure.
What was the hardest obstacle to overcome, you think, throughout the entire journey until you got this deal done and closed? What was like the biggest thing that just kind of stood in your way until you finally overcame it throughout the entire time?
Easily the hardest thing is the highs and the lows, right? I mean, you told me about this day one, and it was, hey, I asked you, like, why do people, this seems too good to be true. Why do people not buy businesses? And you're like, they have a couple deals fall through and they just kind of let things fall and they just stop trying. That was easily the hardest part was the emotion of it, because, you do invest a lot of time and effort, money and energy into making this happen. And to be so close sometimes is very difficult. That was definitely the hardest part.
Totally, man. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because even though everyone that I work with and every member of my community, like, I tell them the hardest part, because everyone's always like, this is too good to be true. How do I double my money in year one? And I have this asset that's paying me, and I have a fairly passive where I'm not working the day-to-day. That sounds too good to be true. And it's like, it's not too good to be true. If you're thinking that it's like, I do no work at all and this deal falls in my lap and it gets done, that's too good to be true. And that's 100% not the way it is. You have to put the effort in. It is more emotional than anything else, because as you just mentioned, you can get multiple deals almost to the finish line and they can fall apart for whatever reason. And you put time, you may have traveled out there and saw it. You may have done due diligence on it and spent a couple $1,000s on that. You get to the point where, like, you do it once, you feel dejected. It happens to you twice, now you're depressed. And like, do I want to go through this again? Because there's no guarantee, right? At the end of the day, it's two parties coming together all the way to the table and saying, I do. And anything before that, they could break up. And so when you finally do get there and you look back, yes, now you can say, man, I got everything I was looking for. I'm making the return I wanted. I have it as passive as I could possibly get. All of it hit my goals, but the journey here was definitely not easy. It was not a get rich quick scheme. It wasn't like I just lucked into this. This was hard work to get here.
Yeah, no, 100%. Even though I knew it wasn't true, like, I did think it was like going to be pretty easy to get something within the first, month or two, especially with your platform and, how many people we were hitting as far as, cold emails, and we were doing calls together. Like, I was like, okay, well, something's going to happen within the first couple of weeks, right? It's all a learning experience, because at the start of the process, like, I didn't feel comfortable talking to brokers, owners, how to request signing an NDA, how to proceed moving forward. And then that was all a learning process, right? I mean, I'm not special. I didn't know, I wasn't in this field before, I started talking to you, and you just kind of have to learn as you go. You got to put in some time on your own to learn and do some research as far as like the financing and, how things really work, right? So it is a process, and people just have to realize that it's worth it if you just continue to, to push through and put in all the necessary work to.
Yeah, no, well said, man. So what is now your goal, obviously, for the firm that you just purchased? And what's your kind of like your next 12-month goal in terms of, is it mostly just based on stabilizing, making some incremental changes? What are your plans overall for this firm? And then this is going to be turning into multiple acquisitions down the road.
Yeah, I mean, everything right now with this firm, I'm kind of just letting things, I'm very hands off. I want things to run as they have been running. It's been running so efficiently for so long that me coming in to make any sort of changes would probably be doing it a disservice. So especially for the first 6 months to a year, I want to see how things operate on their own with new ownership, obviously, with getting the new employee integrated and everything. So after the first year, we'll kind of evaluate to see where things could possibly, improve, or honestly, let things continue as is. So it'll just kind of be one of those things that I monitor over time.
What's a piece of advice you would give to anyone who is thinking about getting into acquiring a business? Similar background as you, they've been successful in other ways. They have a good job, but they've never bought a business before. What would be that piece of advice that you would give to them?
Find a good mentor and just stick with it, because these things can happen. You can buy a business. It seems so crazy and far-fetched to, the average person who's working, a 9-to-5 or just a regular corporate job, and to be able to continue to do that while being a business owner is certainly attainable, but you have to put in the work. It's not going to be, like you said, a get rich quick thing, but just be consistent as well, right? So if it's something you do want to pursue, look at deals every day, do some research every day. Don't let, weeks, go by and, not know what kind of is out there in the market. So having someone like you to, guide me along the way, take phone calls together, answer questions is obviously a huge help. So
awesome, dude. And I'm guessing that this is the first of more planned in terms of your acquisitions. Are you going to stop here, or is this?
No, man, I got the bug.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm always looking, right? So I still use the same websites that you showed me. I'm on there pretty much every day looking at stuff. So I definitely want to, it's been really fun, and seeing the fruits of your labor really motivates you even more to, expand, whether it's in the same field or it's a different field. So yeah, it's all exciting. And I definitely see myself with a few more here in the next couple years.
Well, that's awesome. And the cool thing, especially for the industry that you got into, which is accounting, this works across industries, but especially with accounting, as you do follow-on acquisitions in the same space, you have up to 100% financing, right, on each of the follow-on acquisitions. So if in the year from now, or in 6 months to a year, and everything's going well, you find a great accounting firm, you want to add it to your portfolio, you go out there, get a great price, and the bank will finance at 100%. So literally doing it with no money out of your pocket. You still own it 100%, and you'll probably still be doing over 100%. Well, at that point, your return that year is infinite because you put no money into it. Yeah. So that's the exciting thing. Now that you've got your foundation laid in this with your main acquisition, which for you is a good size too. I mean, you got a very good size accounting firm that can make that foundation for grabbing either a smaller acquisition or something that's larger. So you have a really good base to play with as you're looking to do that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's something that, you learn throughout the SBA process as well, as just the nuances of how it can work for you and your benefit, with the first transaction and then the other transactions that you do later on. So it's a great tool to utilize. So yeah, it's been great.
I'm so proud of you, because like I said before, I remember when we first started working together, I knew you had the skills and the talent to go through with it. It all comes down to motivation, right?
Yeah.
And I knew after I forget the deal it was, but it was the first deal where we talked to the sellers. They seemed pretty open and it looked like there was potential. And then 2 phone calls later, it kind of fell apart for whatever reason. I can't even remember. But the point was, after that happened, normally there's people out there that I've worked with who are just like, oh, this is hard work or anything else. You basically were just like, okay, where's the next one? Right? And let's do it. And I knew at that point, I'm like, okay, he will get it done. Like it's, I don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but I knew how quickly you bounce back and we're like, okay, let's go out there. Let's talk to some more people. I knew at that point, I'm like, okay, Garrett's going to get one done and he's going to cross the finish line.
I appreciate that. So. Setting the precedence, which is what you did, was like, hey, things may not work out like the first couple times. Like that's part of the game. You just have to be, mentally strong to know that the right deal that you're supposed to get is out there. And, look at the deals that you lost as a learning experience. And then, also a way to build to really get the deal that you're supposed to get.
Absolutely, dude. Well, dude, I'm just pumped for you. And I would love to keep in touch.
I want to thank you for everything you've done for me. And I mean, essentially it's changed my life, right? So it's, I appreciate all the work and the help that you've provided along the way. So we'll definitely keep in touch, keep the train rolling. And, I'm happy to, reach out to you if I have any questions or share some ideas with you, and even opportunities, like you said, that if you want to
find one, let me know. Yeah, if there's something that comes across your plate and you need help, just let me know.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome, man.
All right, dude. Have an awesome day. Let's reach out to me if you need anything else. I'll probably check in with you in the next month or so, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Sounds good, man. Have a good day.
Man.